For 12 years my family ignored me. Then Mom demanded I donate both my kidneys to my brother. When I refused, she accused me of trying to kill him. My mother thought I was selfish for not giving Ethan both kidneys. In my living room she cried phony tears and said I killed him for retaining undeserved organs. You have 2 healthy kidneys, Ethan none. You might save him without harshness now. Daily vodka use for 12 years ruined Ethan's kidneys. Started at 18. Never stopped. His mother purchased his first bottle. Boys should practice liquor handling, he suggested. Mom thought physicians were exaggerating when they revealed his kidneys were failing at 28. She accused physicians of neglecting him when he required his first dialysis at 33. 2 kidneys died at 35. He required a transplant or died in a year. Unsuitable kidney from Mom. Dad had poor ones. I had great ones. I said 1 kidney when she asked. Give him 1. 1 isn't enough, she said. His physique is feeble. He needs both to succeed. Permanent dialysis required. I'm 30. For 45 years machines have kept me alive. You're stronger than Ethan. You're capable. Her parenthood was amazing. His mother raised Ethan as her golden boy. He acquired an automobile at 18. I received nothing. Paid, he quit college. I had student loans. 3 jail releases. I was evicted at 20 for pregnancy. That pregnancy failed. Mom felt my carelessness warranted it. I became a nurse anyhow. Paid for school with 3 jobs. I became independent from a family that disregarded me until needed. Mom never called for 12 years. Neither did Ethan. I learned about family events on Facebook. Not invited to Ethan's wedding. Mom's 55th birthday, or Dad's retirement party. Now they need my organs. I rejoined family. Refusal caused harassment. Mom phoned work about mental collapse. So I informed my landlord I was unstable. I told my partner I would murder my brother. In my shift, she visited my hospital. Everyone, look at the nurse who won't save her brother. She won't split kidneys. Security escorted her out, but she returned the next day. She texted, phoned and visited me for 2 weeks. You murder Ethan. You're selfish. What sister loses brother? Is she unaware Ethan won't die? Not really. He had dialysis 3 times a week. Tolerable. Not nice. That might last decades. I knew from dialysis. For 25 years, 70-year-olds have used machines. Ethan craved peace. Neither did Mom. Restoring her ideal baby without machines was her goal. She bound me to gear. I phoned Ethan immediately. I talked to him 4 years ago. Do you know Mom needs both kidneys? I requested. Yes, he said. Dialysis would last forever. You understand? You're young. Your adaptability would increase. Free of kids. I may, not you. Tried and failed. He said. Said my miscarriage disqualified me for organs. I quit. I informed Ethan's transplant team about Mom's texts requesting both kidneys. Lead surgeon's face darkened. She wants both contributions. Illegal. We'd never agree. Mom told Ethan the team would do it if I consented. Complete falsehood. The surgeon immediately called Mom and Ethan. For Emma to talk, I put the phone on speaker. Mom shouted at Emma for intruding in family business. Emma calmly explained that federal law barred living kidney donors from giving both kidneys since they would need dialysis forever. Mom yelled, thinking Emma lied to shield the hospital from a lawsuit. Mom said Emma was purchased by insurance firms, but Emma seemed professional. Emma relayed the facts carefully, seeming bewildered rather than outraged. Live donors can donate 1 kidney. The law is federal. Transplant doctors denied my double donation request. Mama cried. She cried phony tears for anything. Under the act, I heard terror. A obstinate doctor ruined her plan. Emma gently clarified that Ethan didn't need both kidneys. A healthy living donor kidney suffices. The mom was misled about medical needs. Mom wept more and hung up before Emma finished. Emma apologized across her desk for my mother's behavior. She stated the transplant team wanted to document everything in case my relatives pressured me again. People couldn't discuss contribution with me without the team since they marked my file. Emma filled out forms and took notes as I napped. Mom made me feel awful for 2 weeks for declining. She convinced Ethan I killed him intentionally. I was selfish and unpleasant, she told Dad and half the family. However, a 25-year-old doctor stated Mom's request was unlawful. I wasn't insane. I wasn't rude. Refusing a surgery no U.S. hospital would accept. Driving home with steady hands was the first time in weeks. I felt lighter with expert approval. Out of mind. I had Chinese food on the couch table for Daniel. He stood up when I entered and I informed him about Emma and the call. I started weeping as he gripped me too tightly to breathe. No sobs, just stress relief. Daniel embraced me as I wept into his shoulder and splattered tears on his shirt without saying. After I calmed down, we ate Chinese and he held my hand. My phone exploded at 11 o'clock that night. Mom texts harder after messages. She said I lied and incited physicians to detest her. Poisoned them against Ethan with lies. I was accused of wishing my sibling dead to impress my parents. I threatened disclosure. Sometimes 3 or 4 messages alternated fury and guilt. Ethan sobbed for me, she added. My daughter let Dad down. I regretted this when Ethan died and was responsible. Daniel screenshotted all my phone texts. In my laptop's harassment documentation folder he put each screenshot's date and time. Shaking hands I watched him work. Mom's opinions were more accurate after seeing the grid. Daniel highlighted that her actions justified my refusal. A kind mother wouldn't let one child jeopardize her health for another. Loving moms wouldn't say this. After arriving early, Sophie summoned me into her office before my shift. The door closed and she informed me hospital security reported my mother tried to enter the dialysis unit around 9 o'clock yesterday night. Mom requested the security guard teach staff medical ethics and family loyalty. The guard blocked her from entering the lobby because she was familiar. Mom left after 20 minutes of fighting. I felt bad when Sophie gave me her computer security report. Sophie stated the facility values personnel safety. My mother's arrival was detected by security. How was I and did I require schedule changes? I nearly sobbed again when someone was gracious about this disaster. Sophie advised me to ask for help and that the employee support program provided free care. I began my dialysis shift after thanking her. Working with my usual patients seemed like nothing else. While his machine rang, Mr. Klein showed me images of his little granddaughter on his phone. Mother Brennan hosted Thanksgiving despite criticizing her daughter-in-law's cooking. James discussed his fishing vacation next month. Their dialysis lasted 25 to 30 years. They planned, had families, and moaned about life. Ethan wasn't executed as Mom said. Dialysis 3 times a week was excessive. Lunch was interrupted by an unknown caller. Something prompted me. "This me?" asked woman. When I agreed, she introduced herself as Mom's sister Veronica. I hadn't spoken to Veronica since my expulsion 8 years earlier. She asked my advice after Mom told her about kidney condition. She seemed scared, not accusing, prompting a dialogue. I told Veronica everything in my hospital parking lot vehicle. Mom wanted both kidneys 3 weeks ago. Domestic and workplace harassment. The surgeon denied Mom's assertions that transplant workers authorized duplicate contributions. Veronica listened quietly. I heard her breathing long after finishing. Mom lying about physicians' advice wasn't surprising, she claimed. I was shocked when a relative mentioned that. At 18, Veronica's mother encouraged Ethan's drinking. Her mother purchased his first bottle. At family occasions, Mom laughed off Ethan's drinking. No one could tell Mom about Ethan, even though she knew it would end poorly. When Veronica whispered, my chest tightened. My mom made communication tough, so the family rejected me. Mom would get mad if somebody mentioned or invited me, ruining the celebration. People stopped asking since getting along with Mom was simpler than her struggle. Veronica spoke softly, regretting it for peace. Sitting apart, we spoke for over an hour. Veronica remembered Mom controlling guest lists and talks at family occasions I skipped. She added numerous family members were unhappy with Mom's nagging, demanding demands, and conduct but didn't say anything. Mom isolated or hurt opponents until they died. Veronica offered to speak to suspicious relatives. Before we hung up, she stated Mom was wrong and I was right to defend myself. When relatives, not Daniel or co-workers, uttered similar things, I felt something. My first family approval in 12 years. Daniel and I were cooking dinner when the front desk phoned. Our doorman claimed my mother requested lobby access. I became queasy and turned away guests. She was asked to leave. Mom's background voice grew, regarding maternal rights and seeing her daughter. The competent doorman urged her to go since the house didn't want guests. Mom shouted over the phone. Her scream said the building staff was preventing her from helping me kill Ethan. Daniel snatched the phone from my shaky fingers and recommended we contact the police non-emergency number to document matters. I was scared when Daniel initially called the police on my mother. Dispatcher was informed of the situation, given the address, and ordered to record harassment. Mom was gone when cops arrived an hour later. He took notes in our living room as I explained the pattern: workplace stalking, landlord and boyfriend calls, and tonight's building event. He was tired at 40. Nodding, he wrote everything on this tiny notepad. He said, "This kind of behavior often escalates," and offered a restraining order. He made it look simple and protocol-based. Daniel and I investigated restraining orders on his laptop that night after the police left. After reviewing court documents and guidelines, we listed every 4-week occurrence. Daniel's spreadsheet now includes dates, times, places, Mom's words and actions, hospital events, texts, calls to my job and landlord, and tonight's lobby incident. Seeing violence after abuse helped me comprehend. This wasn't intricate family drama, despite my claims. Consent was often denied and intimidation used. The officer's calmness helped me understand. Not dramatic, he said. He handled it honestly. Civilly liable harassment. I left the parking garage job 4 days later. Mom was behind my vehicle. She looked awful. She had dirty hair, crumpled clothing, and heavy eye bags from days of sleeplessness. I debated turning back and seeking security 20 feet away with my keys. Mom spoke quickly when she saw me. This feverish rant about Ethan being her child and how she couldn't lose him. She stated she understood my past anger, but Ethan shouldn't suffer for family concerns. True tears and a broken voice. I awoke and whispered Ethan wouldn't die. Dialysis 3 times a week may last decades. Patients on my unit did it frequently. Mom screamed I was terrible for comparing her son to others. She yelled that dialysis was horrible and that I was damning Ethan to a terrible life when I could save him with one action. The concrete garage walls imitated her speech. Ethan declined my kidney offer. She requested dialysis for me, not Ethan. Mom nodded agreement. True sister would. Give her everything. Her brother deserved nothing. Ethan was harmed, she alleged. I didn't understand addiction and prioritized my health, therefore his drinking wasn't his fault. Security guard Luke turned. Being focused on us, someone must have reported the yelling. Mom was immediately identified from hospital notice. She was named and instructed to leave the hospital immediately. Luke interrupted Mom's conversation with her daughter. He threatened to call the police if she stayed hospitalized. His voice showed he wasn't haggling and was stern but not harsh. Mom left the garage after staring at me like I betrayed her. Followed me to my car and watched me lock the doors after she left. He inquired whether I was okay and urged me to notify security if I saw her in the hospital again. I sat in my car shaking the steering wheel after thanking him. Mom turned toward the garage exit, shoes clicking on pavement. She backed up 10 feet and turned, furious. She cried, "You'll regret this when Ethan dies, and it's all your fault," echoing through the walls. "When he's gone, you'll have to live with knowing you could have saved him, but chose yourself instead." Luke left. He obstructed her view of me. He remained silent till Mom left. Her car began on the bottom level, fading engine noises as she drove away. Luke walked me to my car and waited. "Try rearranging your schedule," he said. "Come and go at different times, use different entrances, that kind of thing." I thanked him and closed my doors, then realized this was an embarrassing family drama. Security worried about my safety at the hospital. Because security experts felt my mother was a threat, I drove home on autopilot with my hands on the wheel. Daniel was cooking supper when I arrived to my flat and inquired what occurred. I told him about Mom in the parking garage and Luke's schedule adjustment idea. "I found a lawyer," Daniel said, bringing out his phone. "I called Mark Sullivan this afternoon after you texted about your mom returning. I was glad to be no longer alone." Daniel called lawyers and researched as I worked. Seeing Mark's restraining order and family court website, I called right immediately as Daniel made dinner. Mark answered on the third ring with a kind, professional voice, and I explained Mom seeking both kidneys, job harassment, and tonight's parking garage incident. After patiently listening, he invited me to meet tomorrow afternoon and asked me to bring my documents, Mom's texts, hospital incident reports, and the police record from her visit to my building. Bring anything that shows a pattern of behavior. I drove to Mark's downtown office early the next day after work to see his modest but neat waiting area with office furniture and periodicals on the coffee table. After a secretary checked me in, Mark emerged 10 minutes later, shook my hand, and led me back to his office in a suit without a tie, maybe 50. Sitting across from his workstation, I pulled out the folder Daniel and I had made, which contained screenshots of Mom's messages grouped by date, hospital security records from each visit, my apartment building's police report, and the transplant surgeon's statement about the illegal double kidney request. Mark lay everything out on his desk and wrote notes on a yellow legal pad as I described Mom's original demand to last night in the parking garage, asking about witnesses, dates, and Mom's physical violence. After talking, Mark sat back and glanced at his desk documents, saying, "You have an excellent case for a restraining order. The pattern is clear. Numerous witnesses and documented workplace disruption." Mark explained the process. I felt better when a lawyer indicated my case was strong. Legal authorities would take it seriously. 4 weeks after we petitioned, the court scheduled a restraining order hearing. I'd testify and provide proof concerning Mom's activities during the hearing. He'd help me prepare court testimony. "Given what you've shown me, I'm confident the judge will grant the order," said. "You have hospital security involved, police reports, workplace complaints, and a clear pattern of escalating behavior." Mark's assurance calmed me. I wasn't mean or theatrical. I was protecting myself from a boundary breaker. We scheduled a hearing preparation meeting next week. While making leftovers that night, I answered an unknown phone. "Hello?" Dad's tired, scratchy voice said. "It's me." After Mom booted me out 12 years ago, Dad contacted me to say, "Mom told me what transpired in the hospital. I know she's been out of line, but please reconsider." I closed the microwave and placed my hand on the counter for Ethan. "Where were you when Mom expelled me at 20, when I miscarried alone, when I worked 3 jobs to graduate nursing school?" The connection was quiet, but I could hear Dad breathing and visualize him at my boyhood home. "I know I should have spoken up for you back then," said. "Why not forget the past when Ethan's life is at stake?" "Dad, Ethan is safe. He gets dialysis 3 times a week. Many patients at my hospital do it." Dad looked bewildered. "Your mother stated the transplant experts advised her both kidneys would offer Ethan the best chance. 1 kidney may not be enough." After the transplant surgeon phoned to say double kidney donation is unlawful and impossible, I told Mom she lied. Despite my efforts, the hospital refused. Dad grew quieter. "She said the doctor said that." He hesitated. "Mom lied to you, Dad. She showed me paperwork and everything." "She misled Ethan." Dad didn't say anything for nearly a minute, but I heard him stirring, maybe rising or pacing. "I don't understand all the medical stuff, so I just trusted your mother to handle the technicalities. I knew Mom was manipulating everyone. Ethan thought the transplant team had authorized removing both my kidneys if I consented. Dad felt the doctors advised it for Ethan's best chance. The whole family undoubtedly accepted Mom's version, where I was the greedy villain refusing to rescue my dying brother. Everyone believed her because nobody imagined she'd lie about something so important. "Ethan isn't dying," I said. "Dialysis is unpleasant but effective. You could live normally on it. Just 1 kidney transplant is needed. Only living donors offer that." Mom lied about requiring both. I explained how the transplant procedure works and how 1 healthy kidney from a living donor is typically better than 2 from a deceased donor because it's fresher. I told him about my patients who'd been on dialysis since the 1990s and had careers, families, and full. Dad listened without interrupting, collecting data that contradicted Mom's claims. His voice sounded older than I recalled, worn down by years of letting Mom make all the choices. "I need to figure out what's true." Dad listened to the facts and said he needed to think about it, not scolded or embarrassed me. 1 phone conversation didn't erase 12 years of quiet, but maybe Dad was finally seeing through Mom's deception. Or maybe he'd decide it was simpler to believe her story, and I'd never hear from him again. After Catalina suggested family stress therapist Michaela Fields, I took the elevator to the hospital's staff support program on the 3rd floor the next week. Catalina told me Michaela knew tough family circumstances and wouldn't push reconciliation, as I completed out intake papers regarding my family history and present pressures in the quiet waiting area with comfortable seats and serene colors. Michaela, younger than I expected, maybe 40, came out to receive me in ordinary clothes. Her handshake was warm, and she smiled like she was delighted to meet me. Her office had a couch, 2 chairs, windows facing the parking lot, and a psychology and fiction bookshelf. "Catalina told me a little about your circumstances," Michaela said, holding a notepad. "Why are you here?" I got carried away talking. Mom's kidney request, Ethan's entitlement, the 12-year agreement, the harassment campaign, and last week's parking garage situation all unfolded. Michaela said, "It sounds like your mother has never seen you as a separate person with your own needs and rights. Rather than fixing or advising me, It felt like you've always existed in her mind as either an extension of her or a resource for your brother. I thought about that sentence all week, working and sleeping. Michaela urged me to recollect other examples of this trend. I saw it wherever I looked. My mom had me take piano lessons for 3 more years even though I hated them at 12. She liked telling people my daughter played. I wanted to attend community college near home, but she pushed me toward expensive universities so she could brag about my acceptance and refused to help pay for my tuition. After I became pregnant at 20, she kicked me out since having a teenage daughter didn't fit her image. Michaela revealed mom's kidney requirement matched. She wanted Ethan well again and wanted to utilize my body without my consent. I didn't realize removing both kidneys would kill me because my needs hadn't registered. Anything else was selfish self-revolution for her convenience. Understanding the pattern didn't ease the suffering, but it made rejection less weird. Mom, I wasn't rude. Michaela inquired about the miscarriage at my second therapy appointment the next week, something I hadn't discussed in years. Daniel knew, but I didn't explain. I got pregnant at 20 while living at home, working part-time at a grocery store, and planning college. Mom was furious, screaming that I was squandering my life, hurting her name, and that everyone would think she raised me poorly. Mom said to pack and go 3 days later. She didn't care where or how I managed. Additional shifts let me pay a friend's basement rent. I cramped at work at 12 weeks. My emergency room doctor told me I needed surgery to miscarry after bleeding heavily. Without someone to call, I did everything alone. I told my mom 4 days later, and she thought it was excellent since I wasn't responsible enough to be a mother. After the defeat, she said my body judged my character for not being ready. I didn't hear from her for 12 years. After informing Michaela, I realized my embarrassment was never mine. I blamed myself for becoming pregnant, worrying out, and miscarrying. I was 20, alone, and scared, abandoned by everyone who should have helped me. My loss and mom's abuse weren't my fault. They failed me, so I bore their shame for a decade. This was my first night of sleep in weeks following therapy. Daniel immediately saw I was calmer and didn't react to phone alarms. At his home meal, he discussed it. He said he wanted a real future with me. He wanted to offer me to move in before the renal crisis, but he didn't want me to think he was helping. He wanted me to know he didn't fear my family's issues. He witnessed the worst. He picked me despite mom's nagging and Ethan's animosity. We spent hours discussing our ambitions that night. He desired marriage, kids, and a life without my upbringing's turmoil. I had similar goals but was scared to aspire over 20. Daniel clasped my hand across the table and said I deserved good things and loyal customers. I cried with relief, not anguish, for the first time in months and felt better. The late October restraining order hearing was on a cold Tuesday morning. My hands trembled as I held our binder of paperwork when Mark met me outside the courthouse at 8:30. He told me the court would hear all sides and to stay calm and factual no matter what Mom or her lawyer said. The right courtroom was 3rd floor after security. Mom and her lawyer, an older man in a suit, spoke softly on a hallway bench with his head near to her. She looked compassionate in a nice dress, little makeup, and well-styled hair. Mom's face contorted in misery when she saw me, like I hurt her. I gazed at Mark's serenity. He gripped my shoulder and told me we had facts, but Mom looked so regular and maternal that I worried the court would see her acting instead of the truth. I thought my statistics would reveal a vicious daughter fabricating family strife instead than a harassment victim defending herself. With wooden seats and a judge's platform, the courtroom was smaller than expected. Mom, Mark, and her lawyer sat at different tables. The mid-50s judge with gray hair and a no-nonsense approach quickly reviewed the paperwork and invited me to testify. I stood shakily and vowed to be honest. My testimony was thoughtfully questioned by Mark. Mom hounded me for refusing both kidneys despite medical impossibility. I described Mom appearing to the hospital during my shifts, her lobby drama, security ordering her out twice, and she sitting outside my car in the parking garage refusing to go when asked, with the security man interfering. Mark showed screenshots of text messages, call records showing frequency, hospital security statements proving trespassing, and Mom's apartment building police complaint. A pattern made the judge uneasy. The court stiffened when Mark presented the transplant surgeon's evidence that double kidney donation was illegal and that Mom had lied about the medical team's willingness. My mother's lawyer stepped up to cross-examine me gently. He stated I was exaggerating family turmoil into harassment, that my mother was desperate to save her child, and that I was punishing her for past issues. I'd been estranged from my family for 12 years since my mother kicked me out at 20 and never tried to reconnect. I attended family events without invitation. We mostly clashed about her treatment of me and my brother. Mark stood up for redirect and asked me one simple question while the lawyer tried to make me look like the troubled daughter who created family turmoil. Did I offer my brother one kidney, the legal and medically appropriate option? Mark asked my mother's reaction. I said I needed both kidneys and go on dialysis myself. The judge looked at me like he meant it. Then he asked if she knew it was illegal and would put me on dialysis forever. The judge interrupted Mom's lawyer and repeated the question, her voice sharp. Mom shifted in her seat, her composure cracking. She said the doctors were wrong, that she'd only been exploring all options to save her son, and that any mother would do the same. She never meant to hurt me. She just wanted Ethan to have The judge asked whether Mom knew bugging me at work may cost me my job. Mom said she was just trying to make me realize how serious the matter was. The judge then asked if entering my residence after being told to stay away was acceptable. Mom flushed and cried, but they were panic tears as she realized her manipulation wasn't working on someone with authority. The judge granted a 1-year restraining order barring Mom from contacting me directly or through third parties, visiting my workplace or home, or posting about me on social. She warned of swift arrest and jail time, and Mom's face crumpled and she wept harder, holding her lawyer's arm like she needed physical support. Her lawyer advocated a lighter sentence or fewer restrictions, but the judge was unmoved. She stated the recorded harassment was serious and persistent, that I had a right to feel secure at work and home, and that Mom's actions had violated legal bounds regardless of her reasons. The gavel cracked, and Mom couldn't contact me without criminal repercussions. Mark said it was perfect, and Daniel hugged me outside, telling me I did great, and it was completed. It was important, but holding the restraining order paperwork on the courtroom steps made me feel heavy, sorrowful, and like something permanent had broken. Daniel took me to a fancy downtown restaurant with good wine and low lighting to celebrate, telling me how brave I was and how proud he was of protecting myself. The restraining order confirmed that my mother would never change, apologize, or see me as a person. I was exhausted after the hearing. I picked up my food and drank my wine and tried to feel good about having legal protection, but I couldn't. Daniel noticed and stopped pushing. He reached across the table and held my hand, telling me it was okay to not be okay and that I didn't have to pretend everything was fine just because I won in. He knew that guarding yourself from family feels like loss. We finished dinner silently and walked back to his apartment, where I fell asleep on his couch before 9 without going to bed. 4 days after the judicial hearing, Veronica called as I was getting ready for work. After asking for the medical papers, she told me Dad confronted Mom about the falsehoods with a strained but resolute voice. The transplant team never indicated both kidneys would offer Ethan a greater chance, and the physicians never said one wouldn't be enough. After learning the truth, Dad was furious, and Veronica said they had their biggest fight ever. He packed a suitcase and came to Veronica's house that night to stay in her guest room while he resolved things. Veronica said she'd never seen him so angry or dejected. He was seeing 30 years of marriage clearly for the first time and despised it. She told me other family members had been calling her wondering what happened because Mom's narrative kept changing and nothing made sense. My cousin wanted to know why I was thrown out at 20. I felt strange buttoning my scrubs as Veronica said Mom's long-held story was crumbling and family members were reaching out to uncover the truth. That afternoon between appointments, my cousin Olivia, who had spent summers with me before the family split, sent me a long, awkward Facebook post apologizing for believing Mom's statements about me being unstable and greedy. She apologized for not reaching out sooner and suggested we meet for coffee. No pressure. She understood if I said no. I pondered at the message for a while before responding. Yes, I'd appreciate that. The next morning, Catalina summoned me into her office before rounds. I worried one of my patients had a problem, but she grinned and said the hospital management wanted to recognize my approach to Mom. Catalina wrote a letter explaining how I'd never let the harassment affect my work and how I'd continued providing excellent care even when Mom was at the hospital causing scenes. The board would put the commendation in my personnel file and give me a small bonus for maintaining patient care standards during a difficult personal time. Anxious, I arrived early for the coffee meeting with Olivia on my day off and watched people pass by the window. Being praised for surviving my mother's pestering felt strange and gratifying. Olivia looked older than the Facebook photos, and tired, like life had worn her down. We hugged awkwardly, ordered drinks, and sat across from each other, unsure how to start. Olivia apologized again for the years of exclusion, saying she'd always questioned Mom's version but went along rather than make. Olivia asked about me during family functions I wasn't invited to, But Mom became irate and Dad diverted the subject. She stopped asking because she felt bad about choosing comfort over doing the right thing. We spoke for 2 hours, which was beautiful yet heartbreaking. Olivia left after telling me Ethan was angry about the restraining order and blamed me for tearing the family apart, calling me ugly and harsh. Olivia said Dad was still going to dialysis 3 times a week and ranting about his unjust existence. Dad wrote on Facebook about selfish siblings who abandoned needy family and subtweeted about me, even though he couldn't name me. He was healthy, stable, and not in danger, but he was upset that his little sister wouldn't assist him. Olivia was honest and told me the transplant team was searching the National Donor Registry. Olivia confirmed what I already knew from transplantation, but it made it truer. Ethan would get his kidney, but not from me. Michaela and I explored my complex ideas about protecting myself while watching family relationships break apart that week in therapy. I told her about Dad staying with Veronica, Olivia reaching out, and my strange mix of relief and guilt. Michaela taught me that I wasn't responsible for resolving problems I didn't cause, that Mom's lies and manipulation had been ruining the family before I established boundaries, and that some relationships are too broken to repair. Michaela said it's normal to feel bad about the restraining order, but it doesn't mean I made the wrong choice. It just shows I'm human, and family relationships are hard, especially poisonous ones. Mark phoned 4 weeks after the courthouse hearing to say Dad had contacted out and asked if I'd meet with him alone. No Mom, no Ethan. Mark said I didn't have to agree to anything, but he recommended a public spot and reminded me I could leave if I felt frightened. I told Mark I'd meet Dad in a downtown coffee shop Saturday morning, neutral ground where we had no history. I arrived 15 minutes early and sat at a corner table with a door view. Despite the warm coffee, my stomach and hands were chilly. Dad came on time, looking older than I recalled. His hair was grayer, his face more wrinkled, and his shoulders stooped like he was carrying a weight. He noticed me and sat across from me without hugging or touching me. We gazed at each other for a long time before he started. He apologized for the decade of silence, not reaching out after I got kicked out, not being there when I miscarried, and missing 12 years of my life because it was easier. He said he chose peace over justice and was ashamed of that. He also admitted he believed Mom's kidney lies because he didn't understand medical stuff and trusted her to handle the details. I couldn't tell him everything was okay or that I'd forgiven him, so I watched him look at his coffee cup trying to find answers. The apology hurt more than if it had been phony since it meant he knew what he did and chose it nonetheless for 12 years. I inhaled and told him that words were simple, and he had a decade to reach out before Ethan needed a kidney. He shook but nodded and kept his eyes down. I promised to rebuild something if he wanted change. Not guilty, but devoted to being different, we could meet once a month for coffee and see if trust would return. He looked up, relieved, and accepted immediately. We decided the 3rd Saturday of each month, same coffee shop, same hour, a realistic and safe framework. Daniel and I sat on my couch, his laptop screen lighting up his face as he clicked through vacant room photos. We'd been discussing moving in together for weeks, but tonight it looked real and feasible. He showed me a 2-bedroom with big windows, and I leaned against his shoulder, feeling his solid warmth and thinking about how different this was from my family. With Daniel, I got to choose and build something new instead of fixing something broken. I said, "Yes, let's go look at it this weekend." Daniel saved the listing and kissed my head, giving me hope. I couldn't explain why we needed a house together. At my next therapy session 4 days later, I told Michaela about Dad's apology and our monthly coffee plan. She listened with her usual focus, then noted how much had changed in 2 months since I first called the transplant team. I'd set boundaries with the restraining order, started rebuilding Mom, gotten relationships with Dad and other family members, and now I was planning legal protection. Through Michaela said I'd gone from terrified and protective to someone who defended herself while being open to healthy relationships. I wasn't conscious of the changes since I was too busy surviving each day, but sitting in her office with the afternoon light shining through the curtains, I realized 2 months earlier, I was terrified and alone. Now Daniel, Mark, Catalina, and even Dad were trying to help me. Not everything was fixed, it probably never would be. But I wasn't drowning anymore. The following week, Veronica invited me to a small family dinner at her house. Dad, my cousin, and a few other relatives wanted to reconnect with. Veronica said Mom and Ethan wouldn't be there and I could leave any time if it felt wrong. I almost said no because family gatherings had been painful for so long, but her voice made me think this could be different. I agreed and she sounded happy, telling me to come Saturday at 6 and bring nothing but myself. On Saturday the home smelled like roasted chicken and garlic and Veronica hugged me like she hadn't seen me in years. Dad was uncomfortable in the living room, and my cousin hugged me. After Veronica served supper and everyone started talking, the 6 of us, relatives I hardly recognized but who remembered me, relaxed. My aunt shared a tale about a Christmas when I was 12 and Mom insisted me sit at the kids' table while Ethan sat with the adults despite being 4 years apart. I heard from people that Mom treated me unfairly. My cousin said she saw Mom give Ethan college money and told me to sort it out myself. She felt bad, but didn't know what to say. Mom often stated that others saw the unfairness and brutality and looked away because it was easier. Each story impacted me hard, proving I wasn't dreaming it or being oversensitive. Though I wanted to be angry at them for their silence, for all the years, they could have said something. I felt sad for the young me who struggled to be good enough while everyone watched and said nothing. I thanked them for their honesty, but it was too late. My cousin casually said that Ethan had been matched with a dead donor and was scheduled for transplant surgery in 4 weeks at the end of supper. I felt glad, and something other since he'd have the kidney he required without risking my health or future. Relief that this would resolve the months-long crisis, but also a hollow sensation that our relationship was destroyed and that even receiving what he wanted wouldn't change how he treated me. I told my cousin I hoped the transplant went well because I didn't want Ethan to die or suffer. Dad clasped my hand under the table, a modest gesture that meant a lot. The next week at work, Catalina called me into her office and told me the hospital was establishing new family harassment regulations for staff. My case exposed gaps in the hospital's protection processes, which they were fixing. The hospital now has clearer rules about family members, faster complaint response systems, and mandatory recording of threatening relatives. I sat there thinking about how Mom's misdeeds may assist another nurse from having their mother pursue them at work. Catalina stated my experience would help safeguard other healthcare workers in similar situations. 4 weeks later, Veronica called to say Ethan's transplant went well that morning. I was glad the surgery went well because I didn't want my brother to die. The replacement kidney was filtering his blood nicely, and the doctor expected he'd be off dialysis in a few months. Transplant patients need lifetime anti-rejection medication. After the medical catastrophe, we both realized some relationships were too fractured to heal. Veronica claimed Ethan was already whining about the hospital food and the uncomfortable bed, which sounded like him. Dad called me that evening to say he'd visited Ethan at the hospital, but Mom had been there too, so he'd kept the visit short. Even though Mom kept calling to come home, he said Veronica's house was giving him space to think clearly for the first time in years. Even though it was hard and lonely, he recognized he'd spent too much time managing Mom's emotions and supporting her worst behaviors and couldn't go back. I told him I was proud of him for holding his boundary, and he became silent and said that meant more than I probably knew. We spoke about our days. After years of nothing, Daniel and I leased a 2-bedroom apartment across town, far enough from my old home to seem like an escape. The walls were white, plain, and neutral like every rental apartment I'd seen. I painted the bedroom a soft blue from a dozen color samples the first weekend, and Daniel chose gray for the living room to make it feel bigger. We put furniture to fit our lifestyle, not someone else's. I hung pictures of Daniel and me on the walls. Every decision appeared ours, not inherited or influenced by family or a toxic background. Our vacations and dinners, a record of our life together. No family photographs or photos of people who'd ignored me for years. This place was ours, where nobody could demand things or make me feel bad for defending myself. I woke up 4 months after the restraining order to find I'd slept all night without feeling concerned. Catalina said I'd delivered good patient care despite personal stress. Daniel and I got into comfortable routines, preparing supper most nights and talking about our days without family conflict. After discovering Mom's demands, I started reconnecting with cousins and extended family over coffee or lunch. It was awkward at first, but it got easier as we built new relationships based on honesty, rather than Mom's carefully controlled narrative. My cousin invited me to her daughter's birthday party, my first family event in over a decade. Instead of waiting for the next crisis or harassing occurrence, I brought a gift and spent 2 hours with relatives who apologized for believing Mom's lies and rejecting me. Dad and I met for coffee on the first Saturday of every month at the same downtown cafe where we could talk uninterrupted. He always arrived on time, which may seem easy, but it was crucial given his history of prioritizing Mom's comfort above mine. During these coffee encounters, he said he should have protected me when I was younger, stood up to Mom when she booted me out, and reached out during the 12 years of quiet. We would have been better off if Dad had been a better parent from the start, but our connection was becoming genuine and honest instead of the dream relationship I sought as a kid. He cared about my life, remembered facts from earlier talks, and accepted my boundaries when I didn't want to talk about Mom or Ethan. The monthly coffee sessions seemed like beginning again rather than healing something that had always been broken. I sat in the flat. Daniel and I created together, looking at the blue bedroom walls and our life photos and realizing something had changed inside me. I didn't need Mom's approval or Ethan's gratitude or acknowledgement that his expectations were unreasonable to know I'd made the right choice protecting my health and refusing an illegal demand. Daniel, Catalina, Michaela, Mark and family members respected my boundaries and treated me like a person, not a resource. The restraining order protected me, and I carefully documented everything in case Mom tried anything else. I had created a life where my needs and voice were heard. I let some family relationships die because they were toxic and one-sided. Others improved over time based on honesty and mutual respect instead of blame and guilt. Dad was trying to change, so I let him show his dedication. After 30 years of impressing rejection-prone individuals, choosing myself felt wonderful.